The Sports Desk at the Columbus Dispatch presents the BuckeyeXtra Basketball Podcast. With your host, Ohio State basketball beat writer Adam Jardy.
Brandon Matisse says, "Give me the rock." Here it goes. Up and away. Slam jam bam. And now he does a little dance.
Now, the BuckeyeXtra Basketball Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Adam Jardy for the Columbus Dispatch. Today is Thursday, July 30th, 2026. It's my official duty to welcome you into episode 567 of the BuckeyeXtra Men's Basketball Podcast. Welcome to Jubilation City. If you're juggling your hands up and down for episode 567, you're my kind of people. Hey, we got some stuff to look forward to here this week. So we're here on Thursday, and the Ohio State men's basketball team, as we're recording this, is in Miami. The Buckeyes are getting their foreign exhibition trip underway. Ohio State will play 2 games in Puerto Rico. We'll run down the full schedule and everything here in just a moment. And this will be the first of many podcasts here in the next several days, as well as all kinds of coverage coming your way, because the Dispatch will be there. We'll be there this weekend. Flight to Puerto Rico on July 31st. Ohio State will play a couple of games. We'll practice a couple of other activities. And so we're going to get into how this week is going to play out, and a couple of my off the top of the head thoughts about what I'm hoping to see, or what I'm hoping to learn, I suppose, better way to phrase it. Like I said, top of head. Things I'm hoping to learn about Ohio State this week once we get down to San Juan, Puerto Rico. So that's where we're going to go with this episode. We also have a little bit of recruiting news, some updates on a couple of kids that we will get into in a moment, but we're not going to belabor the point on this. We're going to jump right into it here in a second. Before we do, I want to remind you that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you like your favorite podcasts. If you subscribe, you'll automatically get the newest ones just as soon as our man Patrick Flaherty, the Podfather, can grab them and publish them for us. While you're subscribing or downloading, please leave a review, please click 5 stars, and please consider telling a friend. Thanks to everyone who's taking the time to do all those things. And that includes, I'm sure, people like loyal listener Nico Reynolds, who I understand had a birthday earlier this week that I missed while I was on vacation. Word on the street is he's a pretty avid listener to the pod, and I have a pretty good source on that. Someone named Tegan reached out. So appreciate both of you. Happy belated birthday, Nico. July birthdays are the best. All right, so Puerto Rico trip. Here's the timeline. The Buckeyes will be playing in something called the Arroyo Puerto Rico Classic. And this trip began on July 29th, flight to Miami, where Ohio State will be practicing today, July 30th, in Miami. And then on July 31st, the Buckeyes will continue on. We'll get to Puerto Rico, which is also when I'll be getting there. So in the evening on July 31st. On August 1st, Ohio State will practice. We'll host a youth clinic in La Perla, and we'll take a tour of Old San Juan. August 2nd, the Buckeyes will play a game. August 3rd, the Buckeyes will play a game. August 4th, they'll do some team stuff. There's a catamaran tour of, I believe it's pronounced Icacos Island. And then August 5th, the Buckeyes will return home. As far as the level of competition, we'll see. The Buckeyes will be playing Equipo Uno and Equipo Dos. Equipo Uno does boast a player named Benito Santiago. I would be surprised if it's that Benito Santiago. Shout out to all my 80s and 90s baseball fans. But again, no real idea on the level of competition that Ohio State will be facing at this point. These games will not be streamed. They will not be on the internet. You won't be able to watch them. They are open to the public, however. So if you are there, stop by. Ohio State will be playing its games at Coliseo Ruben Rodriguez. So, yeah, if you're there, and I'll have more stuff. I'll have stuff on the website as we get closer to the games, like laying out exactly where they are, when they are, and all that. But the Buckeyes will be in Puerto Rico at roughly the same time. There's actually a couple of Puerto Rico trips. I was on some of these different websites for these schools, and Army is doing this same trip or something very similar to it. Ole Miss is doing this, and so is Oklahoma at, again, roughly the same time. And you want to talk about a blast from the past? I was looking at Oklahoma's roster. The Sooners feature a guard named Nigel Pack. Remember him? Remember the guy who was very nearly going to commit to Ohio State, and then Miami paid him, was it $350,000 as a transfer, and the whole world exploded because could you imagine paying that much money for a transfer player? Boy, $350K for a starting guard. That's, that almost makes me feel like we have aged so much in the last couple of years. But yeah, Oklahoma has Nigel Pack on its roster. These, like I said, so these games, we don't know a whole lot about the level of competition. They will not be streamed. They will not be on TV. However, I will be there. I will have full coverage for you on the ground in San Juan. First time in San Juan, me Eho. And I will have lots of stuff as we move through this. I will be writing, have all kinds of stories from this trip. We'll have, I'll be on all my social media platforms, so you can find photos and videos and interviews and all that stuff on, I'll be posting stuff certainly to dispatch.com. There will be lots of content going to my Instagram, which is at CD Adam Jardy. And then the same thing with my TikTok, which is also CD Adam Jardy. So you can find stuff there. But I will be churning out a lot of content because these experiences, they're not really as much about they're almost exclusively not about, okay, who won, what lineup did this, and like there's certainly some things to glean from it, but this is also like summer. It will be just getting into August without knowing much about who Ohio State's playing or much about what these teams are going to look like. We'll see on all that stuff. But there are some obvious qualifiers, I think, that go with everything that we're going to see and everything I'm going to write about and talk about and do all the things about as we move through the weekend, is that in the end, these games, the outcomes don't matter. I imagine the playing time is going to be pretty evenly distributed. We'll see, and I'll have more insight on that, obviously, then as we get closer to the games. But I'll be certainly keeping my eye open for anything that catches my attention. Anything that's interesting, anything that we take note of, anything that we say, oh, hey, like that looks like it could be a thing. But I don't envision this being the kind of trip where it's like, okay, well, this lineup from the 8-minute mark to the 3:47 mark outscored Equipo Dos 12-8 and was +4, and that, like, this isn't really like the setting for that kind of stuff. This is more like, let's see some of these guys do some things. Let's talk to as many of them as we can, see how they're interacting with each other, and just start to build a bit of a knowledge base for who can do what with whom, and have a better understanding of where this team is and what some of these guys are like as we move basically to the start of fall practice. Like, there'll be a break after this, and then it'll be back at it before too much longer. But these will be, live reps, essentially. I don't know why I said essentially. These will be live reps against a different opponent. I think back to when Ohio State played in the Bahamas at the Atlantis Resort, and they played 2 exhibition games. Those were, at the one practice I watched, like, Chris Holtmann decided the starting lineup by like guys that won a certain drill in practice. So, like, certainly we'll take note of, well, who did start, and did anybody, like, was it the same lineup, or guys, like, we'll look at that, and we'll pay a little bit of attention to it. But we're not writing anything, I don't think, in pen coming out of this weekend. But we're gonna have a lot better understanding of what makes these guys tick. We're gonna have a much better understanding of how some of these things look, and we're gonna just frankly know more about the Buckeyes than we did as we're recording this podcast. So for this episode, I'm going to run down. These are the top 5 things that I'm curious to see. Now, I could drop you 20 things, but we're going to keep it to 5 right here, and there will be more time to talk about this as we get closer to the games. If you are listening to this, and once I get through these 5, there's something you're dying to know, or there's someone you're dying to hear from, drop me a line. Reach out, let me know, and I will see what I can do. I got to write some really neat stuff the last time Ohio State did this, when we were in the Bahamas at the Atlantis Resort. The interviews that I did and some of the experiences that I had with some of the players, I was referencing just a couple weeks ago, like interviewing Bruce Thornton as a freshman after they had played both games, like getting his take on where things stood and what he had learned and where his head was as he was getting ready to start his freshman year. Like, we did that as we were standing like at the entrance to one of the resort towers. I can't remember which one off the top of my head, but like, we got some good insight and some things that I was still talking about 4 years later when he was then getting ready to be picked in the NBA draft. So it's not, like I said, I'm just as much interested in the off the court and the deep dive and the let's get to know some stuff about all this, and let's see where things stand. More so than maybe like the very nitty gritty lineup type stuff. We'll cover it all, but this is kind of the top 5 things where my head is right now. And then I do want to hear from you. So reach out at ajardyddispatch.com. You can tweet me at Adam Jardy. I'm probably not going to be using Twitter a whole lot on this trip. But you can find all the content that I'm going to be putting out at dispatch.com. And I meant to mention this sooner, and I should have, but this is only possible because we have great subscribers who very much care about our coverage of the Ohio State men's basketball team. It's what makes this job the best job in Ohio. I'm incredibly lucky to get to do these kinds of things, and I love getting to be your voice and your insight into how things are operating. So reach out to me. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to see, what you want to learn about on this trip. And thank you to every single one of you who subscribes and makes this stuff possible, because this is about trying to serve you as best we can. So you're all very, very much appreciated. And again, if by some crazy stretch any of you are going to be here, let me know. And if you have recommendations, let me know. I'm really looking forward to getting to do this here. So number 1 on my list, how does Justin Pippen look alongside John Mobley Jr.? So much of this team is going to be dictated by the strength of its backcourt. And we know that Pippen and Mobley are going to be the primary options back there, that these are guys who have taken defensive strides. Mobley's taken defensive strides this offseason. Pippen comes in with a bit of a defensive mentality. Both like to shoot. Mobley's certainly a prolific shooter. Pippen's talked about trying to be more efficient. But these guys are going to have the ball in their hands a lot. And when we've watched practices throughout the summer, we've seen them going against each other a ton. But I would have to really go back and look at every single thing that I've shot on my phone to see if I can't immediately recall them playing alongside each other. I feel like they've just been guarding each other all summer long. And I'm curious to see what does it look like when they're together? How do they find each other? How much is the ball in one guy's hands versus the other? What does Justin Pippen just straight up look like playing a game for Ohio State? How are they starting to complement each other or not complement each other? That's high on my list, because I do think that Ohio State has the potential to have a really high level backcourt, but so much of that's going to come down to how well those two can mesh together. And we're going to get a look at that. So that's number 1 on my list, is what do those guys look like playing alongside each other? Number 2, what does Amari Bynum's impact look like? We saw him really come on as the season went on last year. I think it's pretty evident that he looks to be in line for a breakout season. I would not be surprised to see him get some preseason All Big Ten votes. He looked every bit coming into his sophomore season like a guy who's going to take or is expected to take a major leap and go from being like fourth on that depth on the opposing team's depth chart or fifth on the opposing team's depth chart to, was it going to be second, third? Like, he's going to garner a lot more attention this year. He has looked impressive when we've seen him in practice. He gets his shot off from the perimeter with more consistency and more confidence than what we saw as a freshman. He still is getting to the rim. He still does not, the laws of gravity do not apply to him like they do to the rest of us. He's looked impressive during the summer. So what does his game look like now playing against grown men in Puerto Rico? I'm very interested what his impact looks like. So that's number 2 for me. Number 3, sticking with guys on the younger end of the spectrum, but what do Anthony Thompson and LJ Smith look like? You know, these are going to be our first real chances to see them going against older competition. And both of these guys have had moments when we've seen practice. Certainly, Anthony's shooting has translated, and we've seen that in the sessions we've gotten to watch. LJ, I think, was a little bit, things were moving a little bit fast for him when he first got on campus. Obviously, graduating early, reclassifying. They were already getting things underway. He was joining a little bit late. There was a process there, but it looks like when you watch him in the periods that we've gotten to watch, that he's settling in a bit. There's still going to be a long way to go. He's still young. He still should be a high school senior, but you can see the flashes. You can see the ability when you do watch him. And, you know, are we talking here on August 5th or whatever, whenever like we start wrapping up the podcast, like, is he leaving Puerto Rico having scored 4 points or 24 points? Like, I legitimately don't know. And I am really interested to see how well he fits into things. I don't think there's anybody else that's going to be as potentially affected by the presumed age and size that Puerto Rico's Equipo Uno and Dos will provide than LJ. So how does he handle that? How does he look? And what does Anthony Thompson look like? How is his game? How is he progressing? Like, let's start to get a feel for how some of that is progressing. Poor choice of words. I'm doing my best. Number 4, who does what from like the center position? I mean, I presume we're going to see. We don't know. Like 4B here would be, does Joshua John want to play? And I don't know. Again, we'll have more on that kind of stuff as we move closer. I don't know if this is hey, he's doing great, but we're still going to hold him out because it's still in summer foreign exhibition trip, and we don't need to win these games, and we'll get him full go in the fall. Like, maybe that's what happens. Maybe he does play a couple of minutes. I don't know yet. So that's one question mark here in all of this. But like, if Josh doesn't play, like, how does Andrea Jelovic look? Do we see Jelovic alongside Ivan Yagovin? Does Vuk Lazarevic play with any other bigs? How raw does he look? Does Amari Bynum slide down to the 5 at all and play that small ball type of stuff we saw last year? Can Jelovic slide out to the 4 and provide something? Like, there's a lot of interesting pieces here that I want to see how it fits. And I want to see what some of these guys look like and what some of these guys do in these kinds of situations, playing against somebody else. Let's start to get a feel for who can do what. You know, do any of those guys hit threes? Like, yeah, that is high on my list as well. It's, like I said, certainly my top 5 here. That probably could be its own podcast, frankly, like talking about the center and power forward spots. And then this leads me into number 5, which is a little bit broad, but it's just, we won't know the answers for a while, but do we learn anything that stands up for the course of the season? Because one of the things that really jumped out 4 years ago at Atlantis was like Bryce Sensabaugh was clearly a dude. Like he could get buckets, he could take over. I came out of that thinking like, okay, there's something there, and that coupled with what we had seen from him at the Kingdom Summer League, which I did have a few people ask, did not happen this year. So there was no Kingdom Summer League. This wasn't like Ohio State's players just didn't play. There was no Kingdom Summer League this year, which was a bummer. I missed that, but we knew by the time Ohio State left the Bahamas that Bryce Sensabaugh was going to be a problem as a freshman. Is there something that we come out of this trip that feels like that? Maybe we know it, maybe we don't, but what do we learn, if anything, that really stands up during the course of the season? So those are my like top of the head, immediate 5 things that I want to see if we learn when we go through this experience. I'm going to rate something on these thoughts and a couple more, but those are just the first 5. When I sat down and started planning ahead for this weekend, those were all top of head for me. So again, reach out if there are specific things that you want to see or you want to hear about from Puerto Rico. Let me know. I would say tentatively, I'm planning on podcasting August 1st at some point after Ohio State has practiced and maybe after the children's clinic. And then we're going to try to keep the podcast while we're there relatively short, but I don't know, maybe not. I hesitate to go too long and then like on consecutive days, but I guess it's not unreasonable to think that like you might catch up with the podcast on August 8th and you'll still go back and listen to the August 2nd episode to hear how that first game went, even if the news even if we're a couple days removed from it. So I'll try to keep them reasonable, but also at the same time, I do want to bring everyone along with me as best I can. So stay tuned and make sure you're subscribed, and we'll bring a lot of stuff to you here in a very short amount of time. I got a pack, starting to plan out, like I said, a lot more about this trip because it's suddenly upon us. Now, I mentioned at the top as well, so we've got some recruiting updates here because we're officially in like list cutting season, and that means you've got guys that are trimming their 26 scholarship offers to their final 12 or 8 or 3 or what have you. So we've got a couple of names here that are all worth mentioning. First of them is DeMarcus Henry, and that's probably one of the highest priority, biggest name recruits that Ohio State's looking at in the 2027 class. Now, DeMarcus Henry, yes, brother goes to Ohio State, sister goes to Ohio State. Henry's a 6'7", 190 small forward playing out at Compass Prep in Arizona. He is the number 3 national prospect, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite, the number 1 small forward in the country. And he has trimmed his list to a top 8, featuring Arkansas, Kansas, Ohio State, UConn, Louisville, Kentucky, North Carolina, and BYU. And in an interview with 24/7 Sports, he said his plan is to visit those schools and commit this spring. So that's not something that's happening anytime soon. Frankly, it makes sense. You know, I've heard the line of thought that if a school wants you and offers you a scholarship, you need to take that scholarship while you can and while it's available and let them plan around you. But I do think if you're a top certainly in this case, the top 5 national recruit, yeah, you wait until the spring. You find out who's going to be back. You look at the depth charts. You figure that makes all the sense in the world to me. So DeMarcus Henry, Ohio State's in the top 8. He will commit somewhere sometime this spring. So next up, we've got Malachi Jordan, who is a 6'7", 225-pound small forward who is playing at Prolific Prep. He's the number 13 national recruit in the class, 5-star player, number 3 small forward, number 7 player in Florida, again, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite. Jordan also named a top 8 are Alabama, Kansas, Tennessee, UConn, USC, Ohio State, Vanderbilt, and Washington. Top 8 for Malachi Jordan. Next up, we've got Joshua Tyson from Lakota West, who is now playing at La Lu in Indiana this year. Ohio State has long been recruiting Josh Tyson. He is listed at, apparently he has a 6'9" wingspan, according to 24/7 Sports. 6'1", 170 combo guard. Number 55 national prospect in the 24/7 Sports Composite. Number 9 combo guard. Number 4 player from Indiana. Let's take a quick look here and see, as far as like Ohio goes. So he at the moment would be behind only Cam Mercer in the 24/7 Sports Composite for the 2027 class when it comes to Ohioans, but Cam Mercer has already committed and is at the University of Cincinnati. So, Josh would have been the top recruit in Ohio, but transferred for his senior year. Josh has a top 6 of Cincinnati, Clemson, Michigan State, Ohio State, Virginia Tech, and Xavier. And Josh is a Cincinnati area native. Another name to look out for, Antonio Pemberton, who is from New Hampshire, playing at the Masters Academy International. He is a 6'1", 165-pound point guard in the 2027 class, number 37 in the 24/7 Sports Composite nationally, number 10 point guard, number 1 player in from Massachusetts. And he has cut his list to Boston College, Creighton, Kansas, Marquette, Michigan State, Ohio State, Tennessee, and UCLA. And then finally, just a name that might be recognizable to Ohio State fans and certainly Ohio basketball fans, but Landon Evans, from Pickerington Central, has committed to Wright State. He is the highest rated recruit in the history of the Wright State program in the 24/7 Sports Composite. He is a 3-star prospect. He's ranked number 193 nationally in the class. He did not have an Ohio State offer. There had been some recruitment there and certainly some interest, but he's going to Wright State. And I just want to wrap up this section by saying the question at this point right now, and this is a whole, we'll get into something like this, I would imagine, like when things like die off here in August before the fall kicks in and recruiting picks up and, practices resume and all that. But right now, I think it's fair to say, will Ohio State actually sign anyone in 2027? How many schools will? Does Ohio State want to add anybody in 2027? Like LJ Smith had been the class for a while, and obviously he's already on campus. But how much does Ohio State want to add anybody in from the high school ranks in 2027 because of the new 5-4-5 eligibility rule that's kicking in with this year, meaning that almost everybody, unless you are a 5th-year senior right now, and even then, I suppose if you're a 5th-year senior and you've got enough lawyers, maybe it doesn't matter. But if everybody in college basketball this year who's not a 5th-year senior can come back next year. And as the NIL era progresses, and we're laughing about Nigel Pack making $350K a couple of years ago, we are getting to a point in the sport where if you are not a top 20 guaranteed NBA draft pick, why would you leave? you will make more staying in college than you would as the number 26 pick in the NBA draft. Like, if you're good enough to go number 26, you are good enough to make more than that by staying in college. So I think we're going to be talking here in the spring about how kids who in the past would have been getting a dozen high major offers might have 2, might not have any. You're going to see wild things in the recruiting rankings. Tony Cornett from Westerville North, I should have mentioned this one earlier too. He committed to Toledo. Ohio State had been recruiting him, had not offered a scholarship, but Toledo has like one of its strongest or highest rated recruiting classes in its history at this point. Wright State just landed the highest rated recruit that it has ever landed. Would these things be happening if the rules weren't changing and if the sport was not going to just get older next year? How much does it make sense for a high major program to take a recruit between 45 and 100 nationally when you could bring back almost everybody on your roster, and the few guys that you might lose, you're probably going to go via, address those issues via the portal. Where we are at a point here. I mean, the only player on Ohio State's roster who does not have eligibility for next year is Jimmy Williams. Everybody else, now that obviously this won't happen, but everybody else could be back. Jake Diebler could roll the ball out next year, and all he would need to do is say, okay, maybe we go get one more guard to fill things out, but you could theoretically watch this entire team run it back next season, minus one player. That makes it harder for me at this point to imagine if you don't, I guess if you can get a DeMarcus Henry or a Malachi Jordan or, a Joshua Tyson, those guys would seem to be, priority type of players, but how much playing time are those guys going to get? Or that's probably not an accurate way to put it. Those guys are highly rated enough. But the number 60 national recruit, how much playing time would they get on a team that returns 13 of 14 players next year? Probably not much. And so you're not seeing those guys get those kinds of offers. Now that could change in 2 years when the 5-for-5 rule has been in effect and things have kind of stabilized a little bit and teams know, who they will be losing, and you will see more turnover in 2 years. But I think you're going to see, the sport's going to get older next year, and you're not going to see as much movement into the sport. You're going to see guys staying in college basketball, maybe moving schools, but it's going to make it harder for anybody outside the very top of the recruiting rankings to find a good, or not to find a good spot, but to find the type of offer and situation that in almost any other year they would have been getting. So keep an eye on it. Like I said, that's probably an August conversation that we'll get to sometime in the next couple of weeks. But we got Puerto Rico first. Stay tuned because we'll have lots of coverage coming your way as we make our way through this weekend. And I'm really excited to get to take you all on this journey and to see what we learned this weekend. So having said all that, as always, you can send along your questions, your comments, your love notes, your hate mail, and otherwise constructive criticism to me at Adam Jardy on Twitter or ajardydispatch.com. Thank you again for listening. Thanks to Patrick Flaherty for getting us out there. I would say I will be back with you this Saturday from Puerto Rico, so stay tuned for that. Until then, be kind, take care, and we'll talk soon.
Be sure and subscribe to the Buckeye Extra podcast in the iTunes Store, the Google Play Store, or on Stitcher.